Hey everyone, and welcome. Think about it. We are swimming in a sea of visual data all the time. Maps on the news, charts and articles, you name it. But are we just looking at them, or are we really seeing what's going on? Today, we're going to dive into a really powerful method for reading the hidden stories that are packed inside these images.
So, just for a second, picture it in your mind. The Earth at night, seen from space. You know the image. It is absolutely breathtaking, right? You see these brilliant clusters of light that trace the shape of the continents. Some places are just blazing with energy, while others are these huge, vast oceans of darkness. It's beautiful for sure, but it is so much more than just a pretty picture.
And that's the real question, isn't it? This image, this map of lights, is a seriously complex story about humanity. It's about wealth, it's about history, it's about power. But to actually decode it, to really get what it's telling us, we need a strategy. So let's figure out how to do exactly that.
Turns out, to unlock the stories in any map or chart or graph, you need an attack strategy. A kind of toolkit that lets you systematically break down what you're looking at. And we are going to walk through a fantastic 4-level toolkit right now. It's actually a pretty simple 4-step process. First, you just see the basics. Second, you find the patterns. Third, and this is the big one, you ask why those patterns exist. And finally, you predict what might happen next. Let's break each of these down.
Okay, level 1 is all about just getting your bearings. It is pure observation. Before you even think about interpreting anything, you just have to state the obvious. What is this a map of? Where are the key things? When was this data collected? And this one's super important. What's the scale? Are we looking at the whole globe, a single country, or one city block?
All right, so once you know what you're looking at, you move on to level 2, finding patterns. This is where you start making connections. Now, you're not explaining anything yet, you're just describing what you see. Do you see clusters anywhere? Or big empty gaps? Or maybe shapes like straight lines? You're just taking inventory. And now we get to the absolute heart of the matter. Level 3. This is where you pick a pattern that you just identified, and you ask the 2 most important questions you can possibly ask. Why is it there? And how in the world did it get there? This, right here, is the leap from just looking to actually analyzing.
And finally, level 4 asks the big so what question. This is all about looking ahead, about understanding consequences. If the pattern you've been looking at keeps going, what happens next? What are the potential ripple effects? Economically, socially, whatever it might be.
All right, theory is great and all, but let's actually put this toolkit to work. We're going back to that spectacular image of the Earth at night, and we're going to decode it level by level.
So we've kind of already done level 1, right? We know it's a global scale map of Earth's lights. So let's jump straight to level 2. Take a good look. What patterns immediately jump out at you? Think about where the lights are clustered, where they form lines, and where there's just nothing. I bet you saw a few of these. I mean, the most obvious pattern is that coastlines all over the world are way brighter than the interiors of the continents. Japan is just this incredibly bright island. You can literally trace a line of light, that's the Trans-Siberian Railway, all the way across Russia. And then, wow, you have the unbelievable contrast between a blazing South Korea and an almost pitch-black North Korea. That's a political border you can see from space.
Okay, let's move to level 3 and pick one of those big patterns to dig into, the bright coastlines. So now we have to ask that all-important question, why? Why have people, for basically all of history, clustered along the edges of continents?
Well, there are a few really powerful reasons. Historically, coasts gave you access to ocean trade, which was the superhighway of the world for centuries. They also give you access to fresh water, since so many big rivers empty out into the sea. And coastal areas usually have more moderate, easier-to-live-in climates. But, and this is a really critical point, this is not just a map of where people live. It's a map of wealth and economic development. The light comes from electricity, and electricity costs money.
And if you want to get really deep answers for your why and so what questions, here's a little pro tip. You can use this handy tool. Just think ESPN-DC. It's a little acronym to make you think about all the economic, social, political, environmental, demographic, and cultural factors that might be behind a pattern. It's a great way to come up with some really rich explanations.
Okay, one of the most powerful things you can do in any kind of analysis is change your scale, change your perspective. So what happens when we stop looking at the whole planet and start zooming in? Let's see how changing our point of view can reveal totally new stories.
So at the global scale, the big picture, we saw a big pattern. People live near the coast.
It's a broad, general truth. But, it's not super detailed.
But now, let's zoom in to a continental scale, let's say over the United States. And all of a sudden, new patterns pop out. We can see these thin, bright lines stretching from east to west. Those aren't rivers. Those are major highways and railways, the very infrastructure that connects our cities. That's a pattern that was totally invisible from the global view.
Now let's zoom in one more time, all the way down to a local scale, right over New York City. And here, the why becomes crystal clear. You can see the lights are all clustered around that amazing natural harbor, which is perfect for trade. And they trace the path of the Hudson River, which was the critical source of fresh water and the gateway to the rest of the continent.
And this comparison just makes the point so powerfully. Look at the difference. At the global scale, our explanation was kind of vague, trade and climate. But at the local scale, it becomes incredibly specific. People settled right here because of this specific harbor and this specific river. Changing the scale changes the entire story, making it sharper, clearer, and way more precise.
And what's so amazing about this 4-level analysis is that it's not just for maps. Not at all. You can apply this exact same framework to almost any piece of data you run into, like a chart or a graph you see online.
Let's try it really quick on this chart of life expectancy. So, level 1. We're looking at life expectancy for different countries from the 1500s to 2015. Okay, level 2, what's the pattern? Well, for centuries, life expectancy was totally flat, just stuck below 40. Then, around 1850, it starts to creep up. And then in the 20th century, it just absolutely skyrockets. So, level 3, ask why. Why that sudden takeoff? And that question leads you into these fascinating stories about public health, medicine, and nutrition.
So what this all means is that you now have a new analytical lens. And this isn't just some academic exercise. It's a really practical tool for making sense of the world all around you every single day.
This framework literally moves you from being just a passive consumer of information to being an active analyst. So whether it's a map about election results or a chart about the economy, you now have a real strategy to get past the surface and find the real story hiding inside.
So the next time you see a piece of visual data, don't just glance at it, attack it. Use the 4 levels. What unseen patterns are you going to find, and what hidden stories will you be able to tell?